Okay, thanks everyone for attending today. Welcome to our Introduction to Tipping Point Planner and our Community Planning Tools webinar. My name is Carol Salazar. I'm an Assistant Program Leader and Extension Specialist for Sustainable Communities. I have a joint appointment between Illinois Indiana Sea Grant and Purdue Extension. And with me today is also Lydia Utley. She's a data analyst who also works with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant and Purdue's Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. And Dan Walker. He is a community planning specialist with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant and Purdue Extension. Dan and I are also co-located within the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at Purdue. And this webinar series is part of our Illinois Indiana Sea Grant Learning at Home series, where we are providing some short introductions to extension, education, and outreach program topics. And as I mentioned today, we're going to provide an introduction to Tipping Point Planner. And we'll have the presentation divided up into 3 parts that Dan, Lydia, and I will cover. I'll go through an overview of Tipping Point Planner and some of the background. Lydia is going to provide an overview of some of our dashboard features and our county snapshot highlights, which are relatively new tools that you can learn how to use at home on your computer. And Dan is going to talk a little bit more about delivery options and how we work with communities and how you can use some of the features in Tipping Point Planner for things like watershed management, land use planning, and comprehensive planning, among other considerations. So let's go ahead and get started. Tipping Point Planner is a decision support tool that merges the mission areas for Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, supporting research, education, and extension. We're also supporting community decision making. This is a long-term collaboration. We have around 25 researchers from 7 institutions across the Great Lakes that have worked together to develop this Tipping Point Planner decision support system, as well as the corresponding research and engagement options. This is a Great Lakes-wide focused project. We've involved community development specialists from Sea Grant and Extension throughout the Great Lakes to pilot, as well as to continue to engage with communities in planning issues. We have received funding through NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and have multiple support from agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency's Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and the Great Lakes National Program Office. Here is representation of several of our partners. They include our research, extension, and funding supporters. As I mentioned, we do have funding support from the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and from the Environmental Protection Agency that allow us to provide the community engagement pieces to no additional cost for our community partners. Our research and engagement team developed Tipping Point Planner with the overarching goal of finding ecological tipping points or changes in environmental conditions before they have been reached, instead of reacting to these types of issues. Our overarching goal is to protect and restore watersheds in the Great Lakes region. We conducted several different types of needs assessments, pilot programs, and have worked with key stakeholders and partners over several years to identify the major challenges facing the Great Lakes region, and have developed our Tipping Point Planner decision support system and tools around this. And these challenges include land use changes, impervious surfaces, nutrient loading, stream health, and food web health. As a result, our collaborators have worked together to develop several different types of tools, modules, and models to support these topics. And we're working to understand the causes of these environmental stressors and to address sustainability challenges. And so we have 6 different types of topics that we can address within our decision support system. We have stream health that looks at indicators of biological integrity. And we also look at indicators such as urban land use and agricultural land use to see how close the watershed is to ecological tipping points. We have a food web section that's exploring phosphorus loading and its impacts on biomass within organisms in the food web, and this focuses in the Saginaw Bay predominantly. Our nutrient loading modules explore present and future modeled loading of phosphorus and nitrogen. We also can identify the major sources of nutrients in a watershed, looking at a hydrologic unit code or HUC code at 8 or 12 scale, using several different types of models. Our land use change features can look at what our communities may look like under future land use scenarios and how they each impact the health of our watershed. Green infrastructure features look at the type and location of optimal green infrastructure in our watershed. And then finally, coastal wetland health can determine how close watersheds are to ecological tipping points by examining the health of organisms in the coastal wetland area. We do have 3 planning scales that we've developed for delivery within our Tipping Point Planner program. The regional scale is at the basin level, and this covers Great Lakes, each Great Lakes. We also have the watershed scale, which we can examine at the HUC 8 and HUC 12 scales, and this also is relevant for all Great Lakes states. And then finally, we've developed the new county dashboards and snapshots. And these are features that are available for all counties within Great Lakes states. And you can find each of these planning scale features at the website that's listed at the bottom of the screen here. And Lydia will go into more details about each of those soon. For our Tipping Point Planner decision support system that focuses on the HUC 8 and HUC 12 community planning aspects, we do have several different modules to walk through for that support. And you can log on to the tippingpointplanner.org website, create a username and password. It's all free to access. And you can create and save your projects walking through these different types of modules. This portion of our decision support system focuses on the watershed and community planning. We have 3 parts to it. The community information overview focuses on assets and threats within your watershed and community. The tipping points and indicators modules include the different types of models and modules that cover the different topic areas that I mentioned before. And then finally, the community planning tools provide an overview of land use planning options, and we also start to delve into community action planning and strategies. Additionally, our Tipping Point Planner website has several different types of resources to learn more about each of the modules and models within Tipping Point Planner. We have several different types of videos that cover the research. We also have different types of articles and fact sheets so that you can learn more about the science driving Tipping Point Planner. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lydia. She's going to provide an overview and introduction to the dashboards and the county planning features.
Thanks, Kara. So Kara started to highlight a bit about our regional planning dashboards and our county snapshots and dashboards. And they're used, the regional planning dashboards are used to look at lake basins to identify areas within a lake basin that you would want to then use Tipping Point Planner in. So you can look at environmental quality indicators, see how land use changes changes in the future affect water quality, and then as well as look at nutrient loading across the Great Lakes states. And so in the video next, I'm going to highlight a walkthrough of these dashboards. So from our homepage, you can access this by scrolling down, and on our left side of the screen you see we have our regional planning. The first one's the Sparrow model, which is the spatially referenced regression on watersheds model, and it looks at phosphorus loading from 6 sources. We've coupled it with the land transformation model to be able to look out to 2040, so you can see how you can compare between watersheds in 2010, so current Sparrow loading levels of phosphorus to 2040, as well as the pie chart show the 6 different sources of phosphorus loading, as well as provide metrics of the loading numbers. In the next dashboard, we have the sense map model, which is the spatially explicit nutrient source estimate map model. The model describes the phosphorus and nitrogen applied to the landscape in the Great Lakes region at a HUC 12 level. So we can see on the left-hand side how we have the phosphorus loading levels, and then on the right side, the nitrogen loading levels. And this is very similar to the Sparrow dashboard, where you can click and explore and select different watersheds that you're interested in, either at a basin level or your own customized selection level. And then you can see the pie charts that break down the percent of sources that are contributing to the load levels. Next is the stream health model, which is coupled with our land transformation model to look at current stream health as averaged from an IBI score, which is Index of Biological Integrity score, which is that gauge that or indicator that is there. And it's coupled with the land transformation model to look out to 2040. So you can see the health of your streams in your watershed currently, as well as what's modeled out to 2040 in the future, as well as compare how the IBI score changes now and in the future. And you can see how you can compare, the user can compare between different watersheds and select for their own customized watershed. Next is the impervious surface model, and this comes from the National Land Cover data set. They have impervious surface, and we've averaged them at a HUC 12 level to provide an indication of how much impervious surface is in your HUC 12 watershed. And the user can select watersheds by basin or by their own selection, and then see where they fit on their mean impervious surface number. That's a summary of our dashboards at our regional level that provide a larger picture of the health of watersheds throughout the Great Lakes. Next is in our county summaries through our snapshot PDFs and our dashboards. For this, you can visualize land use change and how it's forecasted to change out to 2050. And then you can visualize open space categories such as natural land cover, forest, wetlands. You can identify prime farmland and agricultural assets, and then view water quality indicators. So I will go ahead and move to a video that highlights this. So from our homepage, you can access this with our planning resources button. And on the right side of the screen, you can see where you can select for your county of interest, and it generates a PDF with those 4 topics. The first page is a general summary of what the PDF is, and then it goes through land use, open space, agricultural assets, and water quality. And provides the metrics for your county you're interested in and a brief summary of what that is indicating and what it means. Then our dashboards, here we have our land use dashboard. You can select for the county of interest, and it gives you acreage of all the land cover types, as well as how it's projected to change in the future from our land transformation model. Very similar, we have open space, where you can look at open space land cover categories such as forest, wetlands, crops, pasture, hay, grassland, and shrubland to see what those metrics are in your community. We have agricultural assets. So this is prime farmland with prime farmland soils and soils of local importance, state importance, as well as how it's projected to change in the future. And then we have cereals and we have cropland such as cereals and grains, fruit, vegetables, other edibles and non-edibles. So you can see where those crops are located in your watershed, as well as how much you have. Last is our water quality dashboard, and this looks at streams within your county, as well as provides metrics on how many are impaired, what sort of NPDES sites or National Pollutant Discharge Elimination sites there are, and any other existing environmental concerns related to water quality in your county. So that was a brief and quick summary of our regional and county dashboards and our county snapshots. However, Kara included the link, but you can also access it from our homepage, and that link's at the very bottom of the slide there as well. And now I will pass it off to Dan to talk about the applications of these.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. So we developed sort of the tipping point planner to address questions of planning. So what do we do in the future according to the data that we have? There are two major plans that we anticipated this working with, and that would be watershed management plans and also comprehensive plans. From the watershed planning aspect, we wanted it to work at a variety of scales. So we just saw the Great Lakes as a whole, and we also saw all the way down to Huck 12s. So organizations working at different levels will be able to use the information according to their needs. And two of the needs that are in the Environmental Protection Agency's guidelines for developing watershed management plans are the identification of critical areas and identifying problem sources. And you can use the models in the dashboards and the county snapshots, the information there rather, to meet both of those standards. So go ahead, Kara, for the next slide. Comprehensive planning is the other sort of targeted outcome we envisioned this working with. And using the dashboards and snapshots with your community, you can sit down and have conversations about mainly the land use element, but we also have some water quality information in there as well, as Lydia showed. But regarding the land use element, what's important to us? How are we using the land? How is the land use projected to change over the next 20 years? And what trends do we see? And then when we're sitting down with communities, we discuss what sort of policies could we use to guide land in the direction that's beneficial to the environment, but also understands the values of the community. Sure, thanks. So when we sit down, we've talked about sort of the dashboards and county snapshots, but there's also the wider process for Tipping Point Planner, and that's one of community engagement. So we have these tools and these dashboards, but it takes to do a community engagement process, it takes sitting down with the community, contacting the target audiences, which you see there, plan commissioners, government office staff, parks board meetings, and so on. Sitting down and going through a facilitated process, and there's two ways we do that. But first, I'll cover the process as a whole. So go ahead, Karen. We start out with a community visioning process. So this is typically with a group of 30 to 50 stakeholders from the entire community. And we're looking at what does the community value, and what are the assets that the community has, and what are some possible paths forward. And then we move into the second meeting with a sort of smaller group of decision makers, and we look at the models that are inside the decision support system and look at what if scenarios. They dig into the models and information available and start to figure out what sort of objectives and strategies and goals can we develop to meet the needs of the community and also the environment. So go ahead. There are two overall sort of formats that we do community engagement with. You can see two pictures below. The picture on the left covers the technology base. That's sort of what it looks like. When we're with the community, there's a facilitator who steps through a series of questions, and we go through the models in a planned out sort of methodical method for going through and learning about the environmental conditions in the community. And then there's the standard method, which we pull out a lot of the information that's inside the modules, depending on what the community wants to focus on more. And we pull it out, put it on paper, have discussions. You can see sticky walls in the background. It's a very interactive process with facilitation, and everybody has a chance to communicate, bounce ideas off one another. And this is really focused more on strategic planning. So in the technology-based side, it's focused on looking at the information and also developing a plan, but in the standard side, it's more of working together to develop a paper sort of plan, more or less. So go ahead. So for next steps with the program, we wanted to point out again that this program is, or the information and the models and such that are inside the decision support system, they work throughout Great Lakes states. So if you're in a Great Lakes state, anywhere in the state, this information and the models inside the decision support system should work. And then we'd like to point out further that the EPA and the Great Lakes National Program Office have offered funding to support community programs in watersheds that go to the Great Lakes. So if some of the items is from Indiana, we have some Indiana target counties listed there, but if you're in a watershed that drains to a Great Lake, the funding is available to do a full community engagement workshop in your community. And then finally, our plans for the rest of the year, I mean, up to August, is to develop an online tool for, number one, teaching about the decision support system, what's the information inside. Number two, how to use it. And number three, how to do the facilitation side of the in-person workshop. So the goal of that is to expand the reach of the program and to help train as many people as we can to start doing this program in more communities. So we'll be offering that planning project starting in August 2020. So overall, we think it's a pretty strong tool for community engagement on natural resource issues, especially water quality and land use. And I guess now it's time to look at questions.
Thanks so much, Dan. If we do have any questions, we'd be happy to take them. I'm uncertain if our Facebook Live was fully connected, but if it was, I'm happy to take questions there as well. And something that we can mention too with our community planning projects, we are looking at doing more of this virtually too. So we are working on not only the format to train people of how to use it, what it is, and how to do the engagement on their own, but we're also developing stronger processes where we can engage with people virtually and remotely. So our research teams can provide presentations based on the models. We can also conduct some smaller breakout sessions with community groups and talk them through a decision-making process as we would if we were in person, but we're developing some tools and ways that we can do that in an online format too. So that's an exciting part of what we're working on for the rest of the year. So we're very happy to have been able to bring this tipping point planner information to you today. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to any one of us, and we are happy to engage and work with you on designing a program for your community. So thanks very much and have a great day.